Yo, yo, YouTube! It is Friday, the 3rd of November, and I'm on my way home having had a itty bitty day. Not quite, I wouldn't say it's been a good day, as in how I define good, but it hasn't been a bad day either. It's been interesting, definitely. There's a few things that I had to experience today, which I'll tell you about. So, I'm currently about to hit the Northampton traffic on my way home. So let's start off with last night. Last night I found a Morrison's car park after I got my fuel, and I'm pretty sure it was Cribbs Causeway Morrison's. I think that's right. And I couldn't see any signs for restricted parking times. So I went into the store and asked the security guard if there was a limit on parking. And he said, "Are you going to buy anything?" And I said, "Yes, I will." And he kind of muttered something about not really being a problem unless you broke it down, which I didn't really get. But basically, I took it as being there's no restrictions. And there was some lorries in the car park, which made me ask. I did check for signs as I walked in. I couldn't see anything. Usually, they're really obvious. So I decided that I would stay there last night and tramp my van in the car park. I went and got some stuff from Morrison's. Unfortunately, um, it was cakes and stuff, which is a whole other video, but I'll get that now. So I had a reasonable sleep, and I set the alarm for 5:30 for a 6 o'clock delivery in the morning, well, this morning. I was a bit late getting up, and I arrived on site. Oh no, my getting up was okay. It was when I got to the drop-off point. It was on. It was very close to the tramping site. It's about 4 minutes by road, but all of the car parking around there was gated off. So I couldn't find the loading bay for where I was meant to go, or the instructions I had. I couldn't find where I was meant to go. But eventually, by 6:10, I had found the correct location, and it involved me pressing a button for security and asking to be let in, and they did that, no problem at all. I got to the place, and then I rang the uh, customer. As it was a contractor that I was ringing, and he said that I wasn't allowed to deliver it in the place that was in the notes. I had to take it to the loading bay, and I'd already spent 10 minutes trying to find where I was. So I said, "I don't know where that is. Can you ping me your..." Because he was there. He was close enough there to walk there. I said, "Can you ping me on WhatsApp your location, and then I'll come to you." And then he did that, and I realised that I'd come down the road after the security guard and turned right, and if I turned left, that was where the loading bay was. So I just reversed back up, went down the left-hand road. There's another gate. There was a traffic light saying red, so I parked there for a bit, hoping, well, not no, stopped there for a bit, hoping that they would just lift at the barrier, and nothing happened. So I went, reversed up again. It's really quiet. There's no traffic around. Went back to the initial barrier and pressed the bell again and spoke to the security lady and explained what's happening. And she said I wasn't allowed to go on because I hadn't been booked in. It might make sense if I tell you this is a retail site, which might have been obvious anyway. So those people who know these things will know you've got to be booked in. I didn't know this at the time, and there's nothing on the notes from the shipper to say I had to do anything. So I kind of said, "Okay, fair enough. I'll ring my boss." I rang the shipper, explained the situation. Oh, no, sorry. I rang the contractor first, explained the situation, and he said he'd ring his boss. Then I rang the shipper, and she said that she would ring the same person. Then I just waited. I waited back at the original point where I was meant to deliver the goods. And then about 10 minutes later, got a call back from my shipper saying that I was allowed to deliver where I was. So I should wait there for the contractor to come to me. And then just as she was ringing, I saw the contractor at the door with a member of staff from the retail place. So I thought it was all going to be over quite quickly. So I got the items out of my van and put them by the door. But then the lady who was helping the contractor couldn't find the key or couldn't have a key, and it was faffing about. So in the end, I took a photo of the items by the door, passed through the crack in the door, paperwork to the contractor, and then PP signed the form, POD for him. He told me to sign it on his behalf. And then I was sort of free to get on with my day. And that was about 6:45 by the time I finished faffing about there. So I drove off site. I went to a nearby car park, which happened to be the Morrison's car park I tramped in overnight. It's just that it was really close. I came into the retail bit at one end and then came out where the Morrison's car park was. So I popped into the toilet at Morrison's, which is really helpful with it being open. And then I had a look for jobs. And I had a plan. And my plan was to get myself from Bristol to Leeds by early afternoon. And my plan was, if I could do that, I then had two options. I would then call the shipper that I did the work for last Friday and see if the job is available for tomorrow morning again. In which case I would just have a nap for the afternoon and then do that job. Or if that job wasn't available, I would then just get a job from Leeds back home, or Leeds area back home. So it would seem like a reasonably sensible strategy today. And Bristol, I think, I find Bristol's okay for jobs. There's usually jobs there, but there was today a lot of drivers very early on. So even sort of at 6:45, I was bidding on stuff, and there were a lot of drivers available. So I didn't get anything going along this, since there wasn't really anything. The other thing I was going to say, my strategy involved anything that had London in it. Again, I just deleted it. Also, actually, while I'm thinking about it, if it's got the word backload in it, I also just delete it now. I just can't be faffed with trying to work out what is a backload rate on there. I find those quite frustrating. I don't like things being shown as backloads, because often they're not. Often they're just hot shots trying to get them cheaper. So I just don't even read them now. I just get rid of all the backloads and all the London jobs, just to take them straight away off my phone. So I ended up getting a job, and it was from Bristol, but interestingly, I was sort of Cribbs Causeway area, and everywhere that had a BS postcode that I had jobs for seemed to be half an hour from me. Even though it's in Bristol, it was all half an hour from me. So that was weird. But I got my first job, and it's from Bristol to Bath. The actual number of loaded miles was 9, and it was for a medium wheelbase van, and I bid £50, 50. And for me to get to the pickup point was something like 13 miles. So I felt that was worth doing. And that was to be picked up between 8:15 and 9:15. So I went to the Bristol postcode, picked up although it's a medium wheelbase job, it basically was a small van job, I would say. It was a single pallet, but it was a pallet of stone, and the guy that loaded me explained that this load was about an hour late because it had been previously booked out another van that had broken down. So if I was going to get any hassle at the other end, I should explain that's what was going on. So that explains, I suppose, why I got my £50, because I happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right bid, I suppose. So I took that to Bath, which isn't very far away, and interestingly, the first thing that went wrong today, and I don't blame. Honestly, I don't think it's my mistake. So I'm going to tell you what I did. I found it's going to residential address, and I didn't know that until I got there. It was a name of a house. So let's call it Mountain. The house is called Mountain. So I was looking for a house on this road called Mountain, and I found it quite quickly. And there was a load of scaffolding outside it, and a skip, and obviously some work going on. And I had in the back of me a pallet of stone. So I went up. As I walked up the drive, there was a couple of builders, but they ignored me. So I rang on the bell. I explained that I had a load, and the homeowner looked quite puzzled. And I said, "Well, I've got a load for Mountain." And she said, "Oh, that's our address." Obviously, it wasn't Mountain; it was the real address. And I showed her my phone with that address on, and so it was all absolutely the right place, but it was obviously not expected. So I then went back and got some paperwork. Now, this paperwork, let me go back to the pickup. Because they were in a rush to get me off site because it was late because the van broke down, the people I was picking up from, the forklift driver, didn't have any paperwork for me. And so I asked him, "Have you got any paperwork?" He said no. So I said, "Okay, I'll create my own pod then." And then he said, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'll do something for you now." So he went in, spent about a minute, he hand wrote a piece of paperwork for me, which had scanned information on, but was actually in the end very helpful. Because in the top right hand corner, he had put the name of the customer, the surname of the customer. So when I showed the paperwork to the homeowner that I was at, she said, "Well, that name is next door, but you've got the right address. It's my address." So I skeptically went next door, so walked next door, and it's quite a long way up the hill. And then I noticed that next door was called Mountain Cottage. Obviously, mountain's not the real word. And so it made a bit more sense now. So I got there, and there was a couple of guys waiting for me, and then I knew it was in the right place. These two workmen. Now, they didn't seem particularly verbose or happy at me being there, but they didn't have a go at me either. They're just quite quiet and sullen. And so my approach here was to try and be really helpful. So I drove the van, reversed the van into the drive, around quite a tight drive, as far as I could in, so they could get this stonework off. It was all being handballed off. They had to unwrap it and handball off each piece, and each piece was very heavy. I couldn't even move it. So I'd say just less than a metre square of stone. There's about 6 of them. So I did my bit by taking the bit of foam wrapping between each layer and laid it on as they laid it down. I looked and felt quite pathetic about doing that, and they're carrying this massive bit of stone, but really it wasn't my job, and they were just getting on with it. I was just getting in the way if I was trying to help them. So got that done, and got them to sign my pod, and then took a photo of it, and then I was off site. I parked up the road and looked for another job. And I found a job going from Bristol to Dursley. I thought, well, Bristol's back where I've come from, but I looked at the time, and it was only about 20 minutes away. It's actually the right side of Bristol. It's North Bristol, and Dursley was going north. So I put a bit on it again. So it was again. So just go back a second. The shipper that I had got the job from originally was a really friendly shipper, really friendly person, and the second job was the same shipper. And I thought, oh, I might have a good chance here of getting this job. So I bid the same amount, £50. The mileage for the job was 17 miles, and I was 11 miles away from it. And again, it was a medium wheelbase van required. So again, it's pretty much including non-loaded miles. That's about £2 a mile, which is, I think, pretty good going. So I arrived at the pickup point. Oh, that would have to be picked up between 9:45 and 10:45. I got there about 10:15, so well within time. And I got to the pickup point, and it was a distribution centre, not a national one, probably a local one. And sometimes these are often places where you get not very nice service. So I went to the driver's office and I saw a guy, and he knew what I was there for, and he was really helpful. He helped me fill out the form that they need to do, and he was really quite smiley and chatty. Not chatty, smiley. I don't need chatty. He was smiley and nice, and he told me exactly where to go. Give this piece of paper to the forklift driver. Tell him where you are. He'll bring the pallet to you. Oh, by the way, we've been given permission to separate this pallet out from the customer. Here's the customer's number. When you finish, come back to me, sign out, and I'll give you a piece of paper. So it's all very clear, very friendly. So I got the loading sheet, went to the forklift driver, stood forlornly at the gate, and then within about 10 seconds, the forklift driver came past and took the paper off me. It was really good. He immediately, I told him where I was parked, and he said, that's fine, just go back and I'll bring it to you, very nice. And he brought this pallet round to my van. And so I was expecting to handball this stuff onto my van and then handball it off at the residential address in Dursley. And this pallet, it came on a pallet, and it was 3 boxes, but they were enormous boxes. Well, 1 small box and 2 very big boxes. I'm going to guesstimate that the boxes were, let's say, 1.5 meters by 1 meter, and thickness wise, that one would be about 12 inches, and that was really heavy. And then the bigger one was probably something like 2.5 meters high by a meter square, meter depth. So a chunky thing. So I got my knife, undid the strapping, put the little box on at the front, really easy. Didn't know what to do next, so I moved my van so that my back door was right next to the pallet. Opened my doors, and I slid the smaller of the 2 parcels into the back of the van and slid it in, strapped it up on its side, and then did the same with the other one. And the other one, I could barely push it into the van once I got it toppled over onto the back. But I did get it in, and it was in securely. So I then went back to the guy in the office and said we're finished, and I was very anxious at this point because I had no idea how I was going to get this stuff off my van. So I made my way off site. Then I called the shipper and just said, I'm pre-warning you here. There's some big items here. I can't get them off by myself. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get to the place. And the shipper said, well, just let us know how you get on when you get there. So I said I would. And then I made my way. Oh yeah, then I called the customer, and the customer answered, and I explained who I was, and I was bringing this stuff, and I probably needed to have some help taking it off. And she said her son was with her, so I said that's no fine. We might need 3 of us for 1 parcel. And yeah, but she seemed really friendly, and I started off by saying my first name, and I'm your courier called X. I'm about to come to you. Just let you know, we'll be about 40 minutes, and some items which are quite heavy. And then, we were now on first name terms because I knew her first name. So that was quite friendly. So I made my way the 40-minute journey or so to Dursley, and I ended up at a house with the smallest drive, so I was able to park. There's very, very thin, narrow streets, sort of a probably 30s council house style, like semi-detached houses on the road, but also on a hill. And I was thinking, I don't know how we get this big parcel off here. So we got there, got met by the customer and her son. The smallest parcel just took off really easily. Me and her son took the second parcel off and put it around the back. And then we were thinking about what to do with the third parcel, third box. And we all kind of had the same idea at the same time, and that was empty it out. Open it on the road and empty it all out, because we knew what it was. It was all little items. So luckily, it was small items inside a big box. If it was a single item, we would have been really in trouble. And they were happy, the customer was happy to get it all moved separately. So we just all handballed, opened up the big box, handballed it all to the back garden, and it was done. So in the end, because the customer was happy with that as a solution, it wasn't that bad at all. So I was then finished and looking for another job. I was trying to get myself further and further north. And what was the next job I got? The next job I got was from Swindon, which was an hour from where I was in Dursley, but it was it wasn't, and that was going to Daventry, which I thought was a reasonably good place to end up, and that had to be collected by 1 o'clock, and I was 56 minutes away from the pickup, and my ETA was 1 minute past 1. So I told the shipper that, and they were fine. Well, I must go back and say the quote I put on this one. It's 66 loaded miles. It was for a small van, and I had to travel 30 miles to get to it. And I put a bid on of £50, which I justified to myself because I thought it was quite cheap. But I wanted to get myself north, and I thought that's the third £50 job I've done today, and it'll get me, into the East Midlands or Northampton way. So I took the job and made my way to Swindon, and I kind of had to rush. So I did get there after they closed, because he said they were going to close. The shipper said they were going to close at 1 o'clock. So I got there at 2 minutes past 1, and got the item, which was a box, and they didn't close till 1:30. So I think the shipper was just telling me 1 o'clock because he wanted me to not be late. But I would have had a lot easier journey if I didn't have to rush, thinking I was getting there for 1 o'clock. I kind of wish he told me the truth, because you've got an hour to get there, but they do close at 1:30 if anything goes wrong. Because I was behind a tractor at one point, I was behind traffic lights, getting into congestion, and that adds stress, which wasn't necessary if I'd known they were going to be open to 1:30. So I got to the pickup, and picked up this box, like I said, and then made my way towards Daventry. It was around about an hour and a half's journey, and I was due to get to Daventry about 10 to 3 by this point. And I thought there's probably a reasonably good chance I can get a job from there. Again, I was still thinking I want to get to Leeds if I can, but there wasn't much getting me that far north. So I carried on looking at jobs, bidding for stuff as much as I could, and eventually got to my drop-off point. And it wasn't actually Daventry; it was about 15 minutes south of Daventry, in the middle of nowhere, really. But it was in a box, so I got that offloaded, and then I was looking for my next job. And I looked at the map, and I was on my own, and around me there was Coventry, Rugby, Northampton, just out of sight, Milton Keynes, and then Banbury. It's like a ring of drivers all around me, with me on my own in the middle. And I wasn't quite sure where I could go. There were jobs from Milton Keynes, there were jobs from Coventry, there was the odd job from Northampton, they were all kind of half an hour to an hour away from me. Daventry was about 15 minutes from me itself. So I was in a bit of a pickle here. I wasn't sure what to do. It was 3 o'clock. I thought I had plenty of time. So I sort of parked up, had a look around, put a few bids on, and then I started to head towards Coventry. I thought Coventry might be a good place. Then I changed my mind and headed towards Rugby because I didn't want to go too far away from home in case there was no more jobs. And then a job did come up, which I bid on, which is from Northampton, going to Peterborough, but delivering on Monday morning. It was a short wheelbase van job. So I thought at this point, well, I'd rather get a bird in the hand, as it were, get a job in the hand, and just, I may even still get a job to Leeds tonight, but it's unlikely now. So I bid on that. I bid £50 again. That's my bid today. I had to get myself to Northampton, which was about 45 minutes away, and then to pick it up. I had to be there before 5 o'clock, and I was due to arrive at 10 to 5. So I think I must have got the job about 4 o'clock, about 5:04. So I made my way to Northampton. Traffic was getting quite busy, but I was sort of on the right side of tight, as it were. Arrived at the place and picked up the items, which were 7 small items on my van. Then I parked up outside the pickup point in Northampton, had a look for jobs. It now just gone past 5 o'clock when I got these sorted out, and so it kind of died down. So I did ring the shipper and said to him, if I happen to get a co-load between now and home, is that okay? And he was fine with that, as long as I don't damage anything that's on board, and obviously as long as I get there on time on Monday. And I have got the option to do work at the weekend if something comes up. I did put other bids on for Monday. I put a bid on going from Peterborough to Sheffield, which I thought was a really fair bid, but didn't get that. That would have been a really nice addition to my Monday. And I got also, but I did win a bid, and it was for Tuesday. Would you believe? From Lincoln to somewhere north. Let's have a look. I think it's quite good. Just double check. On Tuesday morning, from Lincoln to Matlock. So I've got that 54 miles loaded. I got £60 for that one. So that's Tuesday. My regular shipper hasn't got any work for me next week, and didn't give me any work this week. So this week was all about the CX. I'm in the wrong lane. No, let's go back. So it was a fully CX week, and probably will be next week as well. So I'll give you my stats in a moment, because I'm on my way back home. I don't think there's going to be anything I can pick up. I could have picked up. I'm doing the video now. So I'm on my way home, and I'll give you my stats. But for reflections of today, I would say that my strategy today was to try and do minimum price jobs to kind of work my way up the country. And after I did the first 2 jobs, I did £100, and I'd done very little mileage. But it was about 11 o'clock-ish. So by that point, it seemed like I was having quite a good day. The next one, from Swindon to Daventry, was again another £50, and it got me a bit further north. So by that point, it was 3 o'clock. I'd had a kind of okay day, but not a massive winning day. So that's what I mean by the day wasn't brilliant, but it wasn't bad. I haven't made my target for today. Well, maybe I have actually, because if you include the drop-off in Bristol, which was £125, I've got to include that today, haven't I? So 125 for that, 3 lots of 50, so I probably have made my target for today. So actually, yeah, probably was an okay day. But it could have been different. I could have got a big long job from Bristol to, say, Manchester, and then gone from across Manchester to Leeds and got another job around there. I was avoiding London, as I said. So bearing in mind I was doing that, I think I've done okay. Okay is how I feel about today. Right, let me give you some stats. So I'll give you today's stats and then the weekly summary stats. Right, as I said, I've earned £265 today, 275 before expenses. I haven't had to fill it with fuel again. I did fill it last night, didn't I? So let me just double check I've updated that spreadsheet. 1 moment. Just go to the fuel use one and update that. Refresh that one. Yeah, it's gone down slightly. Right, so my average fuel costs for this week are 16.47 pence per mile that I drive. And I've driven today, obviously I'm just trying to change the lanes without annoying anybody. So 235 miles today by the time I get home. That means I've spent today on fuel £38.69. So my net earnings today, £236. Actually, that made target, right? Oh dear. 236 today is my net earnings after fuel. So let me tell you my weekly figures. I have got the £50 as a start on Monday, so that's going to be a good start to the week. So where are we today? Right, so this week then, I've worked 5 days again. I have driven for 1,571 miles, 1571. I've worked for 56 hours and 20 minutes in total, 56, 20 minutes. And I've earned gross before any expenses £1,300, 1300. My fuel this week has cost me £262.13, 262. And that means that my net earnings after fuel is £1,038, 1038 for the 5 days work. Now I am going to be looking to see if I can do some work at the weekend tomorrow. If something good comes up, I will do work tomorrow, but it possibly won't. So I'm going to assume that these will be my final figures for the week. My pence per mile earned for every mile that I drove this week was 66.06 pence per mile. My average amount of money that I earned per day after fuel is taken off is £207.57, 207.57. So it is a reasonable amount below target this week. So that was a CX week, all CX work, and I made £43 less per day on average for my target. And if I was to, I'm going to calculate this, I don't really use this figure at all, but if you do use this figure, my average hourly earnings this week, after I take into account my business cost of £80 per day that I've worked, is £11.16 an hour. Right, so I'm going to say today what I'm grateful for, and today I've met a lot of people, and I've spoken to a lot of people on the phone who are very friendly. Everyone that's given me a job has been friendly and helpful. Everyone that I've been delivering to or on sites for has been friendly. So I'm just appreciative for meeting so many people today that were friendly and pleasant and helpful. That's what I'm grateful for today. thank you very much for listening to this video. I hope that you are successful in however you choose to define the word successful. And what are you grateful for today?